My dear friends, very good afternoon. This is Commander Sudhir Kumar from my YouTube channel Pulse Beat of India. Today I am going to talk about that why everyone throughout the world is calling that it is India moment. Even few are calling it is India decade. Some are talking about that the next 2 3 decades are going to belong to India, and some people are telling even this century will shall be an Indian century. I am going to talk about some salient, important, or rather transformatory reforms which have taken place in last 9 years under the pragmatic leadership of Narendra Modi. If you see it, the first of all, what Narendra Modi did, that he has boosted the confidence of Indian diaspora in the entire world and bringing in force a very pragmatic foreign policy where the India focused approach was adopted, but mutual interest and mutual benefits and mutual respect. These were the cardinal principles of a foreign policy, which had been very successful, and that's where all the countries are respecting India because our Prime Minister has projected a collective leadership from 140 crore Indian across the world, and that leadership has been respected. After that, you will see that the sustained efforts have been made in order to provide that ease of doing business. Remarkable progress was done in ease of doing business, and we lowered our ranking at least by 70 points. In the same way, a structured and formalization of economy was introduced where inflation was always in mind, that there has to be in control on inflation. That's why India is able to contain inflation lowest in the world as per at present, and it's never touched two digits, which was the situation before 2014. But if you look at it, even the fiscal deficit has been contained and very tight financial prudence system has been followed. RBI is following a very pragmatic policy which is in place, and if you look at it, by doing all these things, you can say the macro stability was brought in to Indian economy by making it structured and formalized economy. If you see the tax systems, one side the GST was brought in, another side the direct tax reforms were brought in, and then corporate tax was reduced. That's where this kind of an stability which has been provided. But if you look at it, the Indian economy, the second important reformatory, the reform is, or the transformational reform is, that how India is able to convert the digital transformation into the inclusive development of India, that all the direct benefit transfer through Aadhaar was linked to the bank accounts, and unprecedented near about 480 million accounts for the poor the people on the last mile were opened, and then the direct benefit transfer of all the amounts were going without any leakages. So all these leakages were plugged in. That has given a strong boost to Indian economy, and you know that near about 65% population is residing in India in villages, and that's where all these schemes were directed towards that population, and that's where the economy, Indian economy, always remains the demand driven, and the demand was generated in rural areas, and that's where the Indian economy is the most resilient by virtue of all these actions. Those were initiated by the government in last 9 years under a pragmatic leadership of Narendra Modi and his council of ministers very competently. The second very important aspect of why Indian economy is doing good, that when entire world was affected by COVID-19, and then all the countries, even like US and European countries, even China, they were doling out they were printing extra currency and they were giving the cash in hand, so the transfer of money into accounts. The India was not doing that. India was doing the free ration, the food subsidy or the food distribution which was plenty in the storage of India was given to near about 800 million people, and it has been continued from last 30 months, and that has given a very structured sort of a thing rather than printing money and the Indian currency and giving into the hands. And on side by side the needy were supported by direct benefit transfer. The farmers were given under Kisan Nidhi direct benefit transfer into their accounts, and other schemes like constructing toilets, then providing electricity to the needy, and then bringing LPG cylinders to the last mile. And that's where the India has been able to bring up near about 280 million extremely poor to the poor or the lower middle class category. The per capita income has more than doubled in last 9 years. And if you see the Indian GDP has clocked at US dollars 3.75 today. And if you look at it, what it was in 2014, it was only dollars 2 trillion. And if you see that huge jump is basically due to all these schemes, the macro policy uh, stability which has been achieved by India, and then extending all these social schemes to the people those who are affected by this pandemic, hence maintaining this growth story. And if you see that, then bringing that self-reliant mantra into picture, that's where the demand in rural areas was generated, and the growth rate of 7.2% has been maintained. And today, the inflation and the fiscal deficit is under tight control, and that's where the India is becoming, it's not going to have any impact of inflation, where the USA and even some of the European countries, they are touching inflation in the double digits, and there is no danger even in future, because Indian economy is driven by a rural base, which is near about 65% population of India is residing over there, and that's where the demand exists, and that's where the self-reliant mantra is working, as the people are consuming over there and the demand is driven, and that's where we have been able to control inflation by all these mechanisms which I have already discussed. And secondly, you will see that even the RBI policy framework has been very good, that even to boost business, the very pragmatic IBC, insolvency bankruptcy code, has been brought in, and the bank's liquidity has been strengthened by writing off certain loans for certain and where recovery is taking place, so that the bank has become stronger, while at other places the banks are sinking. Indian banks have become resilient. So today, like if you see, the India is spending a lot, that is in infrastructure creation. When you create infrastructure creation, there the job creation taking place, and this massive amount of job creation of near about 85 million people job have been given into MSME sector. That's a huge, and Indian automobile industry is doing very well. As far as climate change is concerned, Indian ISA has been brought in 65 gigawatt. That renewable energy has been catered. So with these amalgamation of the social scheme extended to the last mile, where the money in their hand has been saved, as free ration has been given to, or the food has been given to them rather than money, but the needy one has been given direct benefit transfer. Manrega is doing the great, that they are having work in hand and they are earning money. That's why the people at last mile having money in their hand, as they are saving, they are not buying food, and that had been a great help and changed all these near about 800 people condition. That's where the India focus has been into rural development, but side by side, in infrastructure creation at a huge cost, near about 10 lakh crores, which is near about, you say that 1200 billion US dollars are going to be spent in resilient infrastructure creation. The disaster resilient infrastructure which is being created for the future, as far as the social issues are concerned, that the renaissance of our civilizational value system is taking place now, and you see that removal of 370 abrogation 370 and 35 from Jammu Kashmir, bringing into the mainstream, has strengthened certain, the that history is being rewritten in India, and all these corrections, that where India has come out from this colonial mindset, and now India is catering to that, taking a reference from very rich past, our Maharishis and other people, those have written Vedas, Gita, Upanishads, Puranas, all these wisdom is taken into account, and the modern technology interwoven is today. Indian UPI system is so remarkable around the world, and we are doing near about 40% of our global financial transactions, and you will see that it is 6x to China and 9x to USA and European countries are together. So there is a clear signal that de-dollarization is taking place, and that's why the BRICS countries are thinking for a new currency. And in BRICS currency also tomorrow, if you are going to depend on a currency, it will not be in Russian and yuan of China, but I'm sure it is going to be a rupee, because we have strengthened our relationship doing business with so many countries already in rupee. That's where. And we are catering to the climate change massively by ISA, and then installing near about 65 gigawatt of energy that we have already installed, and what we were supposed to achieve for SDG or for the climate change by 2030, we have already achieved in 2022. So a very high percentage of SDG is going to be achieved by 2030. So with that, the macro stability, the RBI policy framework, where we have not increased the rates alarmingly, and still, the savings in India is the main issue, and the people are saving. And as it is a rural demand driven economy, and a lot of emphasis on self reliant indigenous manufacturing, PLI coming in big way into manufacturing. India is turning into a manufacturing hub. Shortly, the automobile industry is going to take number one, is already achieved number two. We are having the biggest startup network in the world, and the maximum unicorns were born in India, more than 100 during pandemic time. And the way we have dealt pandemic, by supporting, not by printing extra cash, but giving the food to the needy people, and so that they save money in hand, which they were spending to buy food. These are the great transformatory reforms those have been induced by an able leadership of Modi, along with his able, competent council of ministers, and a collective leadership of all Indians. That's where I think I have brought this some important points, where you can call that it is India moment, it is India decade, and next 2 3 decades are going to belong to India, and certainly this century will belong to India. And today I am telling that India will be 5 trillion economy by 2025, 2024, 25, and will be 10 trillion economy by 2030, 31, and will be 20 trillion economy by 2039, 40. And then I am sure that if we are taking all these reforms, and we are bringing new laws supporting, controlling this menace of corruption, and exposing the black money in the economy, and the Benami properties are brought in, and some changes in the people representation acts are brought in, and all these colonial laws, those were made in 1860, 61, 62, all these laws, those were made before our independence, must be repealed, and new pragmatic laws are to be brought in, so that the legislators and any corrupt at whatever level, they could be brought into the justice, and very fast mechanism through fast track records running on day to day basis for economic crimes, and against the the bank frauds or money laundering act. All these are made fast paced. I am sure they'll be shortly done. And as far as the social front is concerned, the NRCC and uh, uh, NSC and NRC, all these will be further strengthened, and I'm sure that UCC and new parliament building where the new session is going to start, it will be passed over there. So with this all in nutshell, my dear global audience, I have provided you where India is and how India is going to progress and where India is progress in last 9 years. So this foundation is very strong foundation has been provided, and that's where the Narendra Modi ji not only popular in India, but it is, I think, from last 4 5 years is the most popular leader in world. He is shortly going to go to USA, and I'm sure his trip and some signing of some certain MOUs between USA and this between collaboration between two great democracies, countries, and transfer of technology certainly will change the complexion of this world over, which will be very good for the peace and for the economic condition globally. So with this, Narendra Modi ji is also going to do the yoga with you in the first time. You know now the India is unleashing its soft power also to the world, where world human well-being is certainly going to be improved, because all know that yoga, Ayurveda, and the wisdom which flows out of our Vedas, Puranas, Upanishads is going to be a global asset shortly, and India will certainly touch upon its original position of Vishguru and again become Sonic Chidia, but for the good global. The Prime Minister motto in G20 presidency that the one earth, one family and one future. So he's talking about the share progress, sharing of progress, sharing of peace, sharing of tranquility, sharing of well-being, sharing of human-centric policies, and the fight against terror and the fight against cyber-security crimes and fight against expansionist initiative by any country in the future is initiative. So with that, friend, till I come next to give you another brief, thank you very much. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe to my channel. Till then, a goodbye by Commander Sudhir Kumar.